今天的单元我们来探索人人都爱我爱人人的 amiable 也就是和蔼型，那是应该要如何执行 performance review， 如何接收 feedback， 那一样的我们都会带到心态跟语言的虚值。Hello， 欢迎来到 Executive Plus 主管与沟通力的 Podcast。I'm Sherry, an educator, certified coach, and style enthusiast. 我相信专业有效的沟通是语言跟逻辑的完美结合。
And I'm Nick, a startup consultant, corporate trainer, and late-night gaming junkie. I believe great communication requires the right mindset and solid frameworks.
我们希望带给大家职场英语的技能、跨文化沟通技巧与其他能帮助您成为出色领导者的工具。
Join us each week as we share our experience, research, and methodologies to take your communication and language skills from good to great. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Executive Plus podcast. Throughout the month, we've looked at performance reviews, how to handle them, how to process them, and what to do. And for a few episodes, we've looked through the lens of communication styles, our main topic back from August. We've covered expressive, driver, and today we want to start looking at the styles who are lower on assertiveness, which means rather than being very tell-oriented and more vocal in their performance review, they are more likely to sit back, absorb information, and ask questions. And we're going to start that with the amiable.
今天就来讲到和蔼型。那和蔼型当然就是一个人见人爱，然后他也非常的随时都会在观察他周遭大家的表情、大家的氛围。那他做任何的决定都需要 everyone's agreement， 大家都要他才要 basically。 那我们今天就要来讲，如果你今天是和蔼型的 executives， 你必须要给 performance review， 或者如果你今天是接受这个 performance review 的人，我们是有一些什么样子的心态跟语言你是可以来利用的。
As a quick reminder of where amiables sit, on our two scales of communication, assertiveness, amiables are low on assertiveness, which means they're more ask-oriented, and they're high on responsiveness, which means they're more open with their emotions. Amiables are truly the team player of all the communication styles. Now, as Sherry was talking about, depending on where the amiable sits on which side of the performance review, that's going to dictate a lot of how the review goes itself. Starting from that side of the manager is the amiable giving a performance review to another style. One thing to consider is before when we looked at drivers and expressives, they're much more likely to control the pace of the interview itself, whether it's a driver having, a tight schedule that the things that they want to cover, and expressive really kind of thinking and letting out all the ideas from the performance review. When the manager is an amiable, they're more likely to ask a lot of questions and sort of let the other side control the pace of the performance review itself.
所以如果今天是 amiable as an executive， 你必须要来 run 这个 performance review 的时候，其实我觉得一个很重要，那这个可能是在 performance review 之前或者年前你就必须要做的一个准备，就是 you gotta set a very clear expectation for yourself and for other people。 因为我觉得 amiable 通常因为非常的在乎人家的感受跟人家想要什么，有的时候可能在当 executive 的时候会稍微忘了自己的角色，或者是就会觉得模糊了一点。Giving clear expectation and also clear instruction how to do that or what you wanted to see, that would definitely be step one, but this is something that they have to do before the performance review.
So amiables have a tendency to be a lot more open to understanding how other people want to be evaluated, what other performance metrics that they want to be understand. So an amiable may be very good at asking questions of like, okay, what's something you want to improve on this year? What are the things you would like to achieve in the year? And then when it comes to performance review, they've sort of built a rubric based on what the other person said. But then one of the things that happens is what becomes a bit unclear is what were the amiable's expectations of the person. So the amiable may have been very good at getting what the expectations the person has for themselves. But when the amiable does not communicate, how are they measuring improvement? How are they looking at performance? That may not be clear to the other side. So by the time you get to the performance review, a person may think, okay, I've achieved all the goals I set for myself. But then the amiable will be like, well, you need to work on this thing. Here's what I didn't see. But those KPIs or those performance indicators, the amiable may not have been very vocal about or very clear about. And so then that will create some miscommunication.
其实我觉得 amiable 的另外一个部分，也就是当你在做 performance review 的时候，很清楚的去跟大家讲你现在你的需求好了。I think for amiable, because you needed that validation or you needed your team to come together, you should just vocalize that to your team very clearly. So this is what I care about. I really care about your feedback. I really care about how you guys feel. So just make that very clear as well so that your team can actually look out for you. So I think, I had a really good example where I had a friend and her boss isn't amiable. My friend is definitely not amiable, but she knows exactly what her boss needs. So she will be on the lookout for her when it comes to, any like company politics or looking for a new vendor. Like my friend knows exactly what her boss as an amiable wants. So I think it's really important for amiable to communicate that right away.
Or like in this case, to at least have someone who understands the amiable's own expectations enough that they can help arrange things or make sure that that's clear to everyone. Another thought on amiable is also when it looks at a performance review, amiables are the true team player. They often look at the dynamics of your team as a whole and how a person affects or fits into that. So understanding that in the performance review, as an amiable, you may be talking on a much more comprehensive level of like, how is our team handling it? How are you fitting in as a team player? Where is our company going and how do we fit into that? May feel a bit separated from when, let's say, a driver comes in. A driver's coming in and they're looking at like, okay, what did I do well? Right. What do I need to improve on? What are the actions I can take? They're going to be thinking, let's say, from a more individualistic perspective. But as an amiable, you may be thinking more as the whole of the team, the whole of the culture of what we're building. Right. So you need to make sure that you find a way to cross that bridge, that the person feels like they're getting key takeaways for themselves, but that you also make them feel they understand this is not just about your own individual performance increase, it's how your performance increase affects our ability as a team or as a company to operate.
Right. 所以我觉得刚刚 Nick 所讲的很重要的一点，就是因为有很多 style 的人，就像尤其是 driver 跟 expressive， 其实通常比较重视自己的感觉或自己的目标，所以 amiable 的话，你就必须要去提醒，尤其你今天是主管，你带一个团队，你要去提醒，就是你很重视是一整个团队的一个 teamwork， 而不是你只有达成你自己的目标，因为你的 evaluate 的方式是看整个 you're looking at from a whole team perspective. So that's something you do have to communicate, especially to drivers and expressive, because they're going to be out there just like doing things on their own. So that's something that needs to be communicated.
One of the strengths that an amiable can really lean into when it comes to doing these performance reviews is your willingness to go out and check with other team members. What are their feelings about this person? What's going well? What are some of the challenges they've had communicating with that person? And then bringing it into the performance review. So again, an amiable can be very good at giving a more holistic view of not just how that individual is performing, but how that individual is affecting the people around them positively or negatively. And so that can be an opportunity for you to give someone a complete or holistic view of their performance. But you also have to, again, balance that too. The person is there to understand how they can improve. So you can bring in more information, almost treat it more like a 360 review, but also You need to leave time for them to process what they can do individually.
So let's flip it around. 如果你今天是 amiable, 你进去要听你的 performance review, 你的360, 那你应该要注意什么呢？觉得第一个非常重要就是一个 self-affirmation, 也就是自我肯定。当然这自我肯定并不是说你一进去 performance review 你才要做的，这个是你每一天你都必须要做的一个小小的 activity, 因为自我肯定才能够让你能够去分析今天这个 feedback 是对我好的成长，还是它只是 opinion， 或者它是不是这个真的是对我在工作上面的成长，而不是我人生上面，或者是 threaten 我整个 self-identity。 因为有的时候你听到一个 feedback 你可能会觉得 oh my god, like my entire existence is in question. And that happens a lot to amiable because they really need that validation from others. 所以我觉得第一点一定要很重视就是这个 self-affirmation.
And something that you should do in parallel, which is important, is the idea of self-advocating. Again, because amiables are such good team players, they often sort of absorb themselves into the group. And when it comes to a performance review, when it comes to like a driver and expressive, they're going to talk about what they've done well. They're going to talk about what they have achieved. And amiable's tendency is to be like, oh, what we've achieved as a group, what we've been doing as a team. But there are times where you need to sort of step out and be like, here's what my contributions are. This is why I think that I'm doing well. And that self-advocating becomes very important when you're going into the review, because either A, you need to talk about what's being done, or B, you need to have an ally on your team, someone who can also speak to the contributions that you have made, because since you tend to be more of like a team player, you're really in there to support other people, sometimes your contributions will not be as clearly cut out as, let's say, someone who is really out there talking about themselves, or in case of a driver and expressive, willing to cover what they have done well. So that self-affirmation to make sure that you feel emotionally ready to process any critical feedback, but also self-advocating that you can step out and show what you are doing with the team and how critical you are to lifting that team experience.
So now, this is something that I believe it's really important, especially when it comes to negative feedback, is that amiable 非常需要一些时间去 process, right? 当下他可能真的什么都不会说，他可能会默默的去接受所有的 feedback, 不管是好，不管是不好的，他可能就会，但是并不代表他会认同。It doesn't mean that they agree with you. They may be fighting inside and they have a lot of things going on in their head, but because they need time to process. 所以这个时候呢 amiable 其实可以非常清楚的 again, like back to like self-advocating. 你可以跟对方讲，或你的老板讲说 okay, I hear you, but I need time to process. Just tell them that I need time to process. 你不用急着一定要说好 or I agree or disagree. 你就是给自己时间，那你也去 ask for 这个的时间。
So one last relationship dynamic we want to talk about is what happens if your boss is an amiable and you're a different style? How do you approach that conversation? One thing that's really important and that we covered back in August with the amiable style is that let's say my manager is an amiable and I go into a performance review. If I'm a driver and an expressive and I'm very used to self-advocating, I may just be talking about my own achievements. But because amiables, especially amiables of managers, are going to be very thoughtful about what's the team dynamic, what's the team culture, you need to prepare yourself to bring other people into it. So it's not just what you've achieved, but talking about as a team, what's been going on, how do your other coworkers view you, or at least what feedback you have gotten from other coworkers, and bring that into your review. You will find that it's much easier to talk to your amiable manager if you don't just talk from your perspective, but be like, okay, I talked to my team. I know that I've gotten this feedback from my colleague A and colleague B, and here's how I've tried to work it out with them. Then if the amiable goes and talks to those other colleagues, it will reinforce that this really is more about like team and culture dynamic. It's not just me talking about myself during the performance review. We hope that you've enjoyed our look at how to handle performance reviews from the perspective of an amiable, either a manager, employee, or talking to your amiable manager. For a refresher, again, going back to August, looking at the episodes about the amiable style, you can get a better sense of how communication might be improved, understanding your style or the person around you. Talk to you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
The Executive Plus podcast is a Presentality Group production, produced and hosted by Sherry Fang and Nick Howard. You can search us on Facebook, 主管英文 Executive Plus. You can also find us on Instagram, Communication R&D, and email us at sherry@epstyleplus.com.